The opinions, views, and conclusions expressed in this show are those of the show host and co-host and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of KPFV FM or its affiliates.
The Watchers with your host, Ed Ledesma, and co-host, Mitch Lingon.
Welcome to the new episode of The Watchers. My co-host Ed is out for the day, so I'm here to hold down the ship. What we got today is, what don't we have today? What we don't have is a whole lot of cool weather, and that's been a real issue in the valley, which has been it's been frightening. It's like Satan decided to come down here and visit us in his own chair, sit beside us every day. Anyway, I'm your host, Mitchell Langan, and this is The Watchers. Welcome, folks. Today we're going to have a few topics on kind of like what's going on in the world today. We are The Watchers. That's kind of our program, how we run it. Keep an eye on what's going on in the community, the world, our state, our country. And we've got a lot going on, as you probably know. If you follow the news, if you're a maniac like that and you like to feel the pain of understanding what the mainstream media is trying to do to us, well, I'm sorry, but it's good to be informed. And I'm going to open our show with some of my notes here. And this is something that you're going to probably find pretty ironic, and it's very truthful. Let's do it. The United States has become a place where entertainers, politicians, professional athletes are mistaken for people of importance. I've always needed a doctor. I've needed a cop. I've needed a teacher. I need farmers every day. I need truck drivers every day. I've needed an auto mechanic, a plumber, house painter, and other people. However, I have never, ever needed, not even once, a politician, a professional athlete, a media personality, or a Hollywood entertainer for anything. And most likely, I never will. All right, so if you get the gist of that and the understanding of that, what we really need is self-reliance. And a lot of self-reliance is what me and Edward, we used to cover on when me and Ed did After the Crash, and Edward still does that with George Cox. But today is going to be kind of a catch-all show. We'll do a variety, and let's move along. Let's enjoy it. If you've been following what's been going on in the world, I'm sure you understand that there's civil unrest is the flavor of the day. Why can't everything be, boring and vanilla like the world used to be when we had normal leaders and good economy? Things were good. Everyone wants to go back to the 80s and 90s. I'm sure the millennials do. They like to dress that way. The tight pants and such. The neon colors. I mean, that was cool back then. Maybe I'll still rock some acid wash jeans. I don't know. We'll see how that's going to come. But civil unrest. We went through the COVID-19 era, and we're still in the middle of it. It's not going to change. We have the new Delta variant and many other variants of the COVID-19 virus that's hitting all over the world, and we have no clue. If you think you're going to get the ideas and the knowledge from the World Health Organization, the WHO, or the CDC, or your local politician, or anyone in Washington, I'm sorry, but you're not. It's a whole lot of BS, and we're just going to have to make it through best we can. And that brings us to what I've always told you folks about over the years, about 4 years now, is since we've been doing radio, is preparedness, self-reliance, and surviving in the new world as we know it. And the new world as we know it has changed dramatically and drastically since, well, quite a few years ago, but 2020 and 2021, we're in a whole lot of mess. So we have to make the best of what we can with our economic situation, our situation we have in your local jurisdiction, whatever you want to call it, your community, your environment, the state you live in, the city you live in. And it's hard, folks. I realize that. I know that. That's not something that politicians should be hiding, and they shouldn't be trying to candy coat everything like everything's rainbow and butterflies and rainbows and unicorns. It's not that way. In my business, which is, of course, as you people know, survival preparedness, I still do my antiques and collectibles and military and such. But what's been really going gangbusters for me for the last couple years now. Fortunately, and God bless, thank you for being blessed with good business people, good customers, and a good audience. Is people are scared, and preparedness and surviving in this world that we live in has become a priority. One of the reasons what we've just witnessed it this week and last week, of course, is in our region. You folks probably already know that now, and we've got a lot of new people in town that have moved here from mainly Southern California. We have a lot of folks from all over the United States and the country of ourselves and Canada and other countries actually coming into the Pahrump Valley and living here. And a lot of people forget when they come here, they quite honestly don't remember, or they haven't really thought of it, but we live in the harshest desert climate in the world. In the world. And if you don't understand that, you could always go do your research. But we live in the Mojave Desert. It's the driest and hottest desert in the world. And I've been to the other deserts, been to Africa, been to the Kalahari, been to all the Middle East, where all the traditional historic dry spots are on the planet. And I'll tell you what, none of them has ever even touched where we live here in the Mojave Desert. In Nye County, where we live in Pahrump, we're in the Mojave Desert. We're kind of high desert, but going down, when you travel down to right over here on the border of California in Shoshone, Shoshone is right on the edge and inside on the edge of Death Valley National Park, traditionally and known as the hottest place on earth. And there's no dispute to that. So this week we hit another landmark of 130 degrees at Furnace Creek, at the Furnace Creek ranger station, visitor center, where everyone likes to take their picture in front of the famous temperature sign there for their Instagram and Facebook. That's brutal. They're verifying that record actually right now. I'm sure the National Weather Service and government agencies are trying to figure out and verifying that temperature. We set world records all over the western United States this week, and in the Vegas Valley, this northern Sonoran, southern Sonoran, which is down by, one of my other favorite places, which is Arizona, the state of Arizona, areas of New Mexico. And what's the craziest thing is we set world records in a traditionally nice area that people escape to for weather, and that's the Pacific Northwest. They broke records in Canada, British Columbia, Seattle, Washington, Portland, Oregon, the coastal cities of Oregon, Northern California, all those regions where you usually get coastal fog blowing in the dead of summer, June, July, August. You can be in Seattle sipping your coffee out on the wharf, having some smoked salmon and some crab. It's like 70 degrees and foggy. You have to have a jacket on in the middle of summer. It's been over 100 degrees there recently this week, beating and exceeding any record that's ever been in weather forecasting or weather records in those regions. That's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. And if you folks remember, not trying to boast, but I will boast, a few months back during our broadcast with me and Edward were on, remember I was talking to you folks about the La Nina weather pattern effect. So La Nina weather pattern effect is an effect that has been happening in the Pacific Northwest. So it circles through the Aleutian Island chain, which is up in Alaska, and it kind of swirls around. Well, it changes the weather patterns for the summer. Generally, when we have the El Nino weather pattern effect, which is in the Gulf of Mexico and Southern California and Northern Mexico, that makes our winters just totally nuts. Gonzo. I remember I returned while I was living in Hawaii, and everyone says, why the hell would you ever come back to the United States mainland when you lived in Hawaii? Well, I came back in the ultimate time, 98, 99 season. I came back to San Francisco and lived there right in the middle of the El Nino weather pattern, which was historic flooding, historic rains, cold, snow, just a total nightmare. And I came from, Honolulu, Hawaii, which had beautiful weather every day. So that's an example of an El Nino weather pattern. Well, this season, we've had the La Nina, which is in the northern region of the Pacific Ocean, which brings it in the Pacific Northwest, which causes heat domes. It's a meteorological effect that makes it really crappy for us down here in the Southwest and areas throughout the Western US. It makes it unusually hot, and that's what we're experiencing now. Really sucks because I was right, and I told Ed live on Broad, I'm like, me and Ed would always say, I hope we're wrong, but unfortunately, we're usually always right. It would be a whole lot nicer if we had a cool weather pattern where we live in this region in Vegas and the Vegas Valley, Pahrump Valley, but we have to live with it, and hence we have to survive. And a lot of it is survival. We have a lot of folks in this valley, a lot of desert rats and such, live in the California Mojave region. They live in Death Valley. They live in the Owens Valley, the Bishop area, Nye County, and Inyo. These people, there's a lot of people out there, believe it or not, that are just wild, man, and they don't have air conditioning, swamp coolers and such. Swamp cooler can't ever overcome the heat that we have. When heat hits over 110, you get at the 117s, 120s, which we have been hitting as a normal day for the last 2 weeks. You can't overcome that with a swamp cooler, which is an evaporative cooler. You have a hard time even overcoming that type of heat with a modern air conditioner, which is supposed to, cool your air, take the heat out of the air and push it outside. A lot of that's not keeping up, folks, because it wasn't designed for heat in the 120s and 130s. It's just insane. So we have to keep prepared for that, meaning you have to have, if you have air conditioning, you have to keep it up to snuff. You have to service it, and it's expensive. Mr. Producer, here at the station, we were just discussing this, how much it costs to service these units, how much it costs to install them and to upgrade because of the inflation we have going on, the issues with the supply chain because of COVID-19, and not just because COVID-19. We have a worldwide, technology issue because the manufacturing over in Asia, China mainly, is not reaching us. So as this trickle-down effect, everything is becoming more expensive, and it's becoming more expensive right at a time where we're basically reaching a weather apocalypse in our valley. People don't have the money because of the economy. We're in the COVID era. People are still trying to recover, and some people haven't. They're not going to recover because their businesses went out, and geographically they've been reestablished in other communities. So everything's a mess. I'm not trying to sound like everything's doom and gloom, but for a lot of people, the reality is, beside what the politicians in Washington or locally want you to think, life is not perfect right now. Not even close. We're at a huge resurgence and pretty much a record time for homelessness and people in need. Children are out of school because there is no school. And we're at summertime anyway. There's people that still haven't graduated because the COVID era has totally screwed up their whole lifestyle. We've got kids that have grown up in the COVID era that it just not only displaced from their schools and education, which is supposed to be a standard and, sure thing. It's not that way anymore. So we got a lot of things that are in a mess. We have a regional real estate boom, which is really compounding issues, meaning that the places and residences that we were able to lease or rent for our community used to be easy to do. There's none available now, and because of the stupidity of gentrifying the region, and we have property management places that are very leaning towards California style ridiculousness. They've raised the property prices for leases to California levels. You're looking at $1,000, $1,200, $1,400, $1,700 rental units in Pahrump. What? That's insane. Kids have to be able to rent and work in the valley because they can't commute to Vegas. It's even more expensive there. You have to have 4 and 5, sometimes 6 people live in a 1-bedroom or try to rent a house. They can't afford it because the wages here, we don't have industry here in Pahrump that where kids and youth, people in their 20s and 30s, can even afford to live here anymore. It's astonishing. And that's where we have to take it back to doing the best we can. Sometimes the best we can is to be self-reliant. And people are saying out there, they tell me, Mitch, I know, I understand. Self-reliance is essential. But the reality of it is, how can you be at the top of self-reliance when you don't have the tools to do it? When I mean tools, it's just some people just aren't set up. They aren't set up because of family issues. They aren't set up because of monetary issues, meaning income. This is a retirement community. It's being gentrified towards more of a, a second house community or an escape community from people from all over the West Coast. And it's driving up prices. It's driving up utility prices. It's driving up everything in town. And it's really sad for me to see. Pahrump was one of those towns. And Mr. Producer can back this up. We call it, it was the last free community in America, meaning we enjoy and love our Second Amendment rights. We enjoy and love our, tax. We don't have that many tax burdens. We're in Nevada. We're Nevada County. We have people that, of course, enjoy the vices, drinking, gambling, and, of course, our famous brothels. We're a one-of-a-kind region here in Nye County, and we're changing. We're changing a lot, and a lot of things, a lot of folks here in town that I talk to on a daily and weekly basis, my customers and friends, they don't like the direction it's going because we want to maintain that small town, Wild West atmosphere, and we're changing, unfortunately. But there's going to be change because times, we have to progress into the future. It's going to be a wild time. We're going back to the Wild West in a lot of ways in the Nye County, in the Pahrump Valley, in our surrounding regions. And we just have to sit, be prepared, be self-reliant as much as we can, and be ready for the future. I've been preaching to you folks and our listeners and all my customers throughout the West, on my traveling shows and on TV and other radio stuff that I've been doing for years. You got to be prepped. You got to be prepared. The best way to do that is to get in front of the issues before they become real issues in your face, and then you're behind. And once you're behind in anything, it's really hard, folks, to try to keep up or get back to being in the front again. And it's really hard to do that. It's easy to sit there and talk about it, but it's a whole nother thing of trying to implement a plan for your family, your children. A lot of you folks out there have kids, young kids, and it's not easy. Nothing's easy anymore. There's no easy button for the United States anymore. We've fundamentally changed. Remember that phrase we had way back when, and I wish I never had heard it. I've never used it in my survival or any of my mentees when I've been mentoring or trying to get people into a state of mind of preparing for the future. Remember old Barack Hussein Obama? He said, we're going to fundamentally change America. And I always thought, oh, ouch. What do we fundamentally need to change? Because quite honestly, at the time, we've always had our problems in America. We always have. But fundamentally, we are an amazing place. We are the greatest place and always will be the greatest community, greatest country, have the greatest counties and greatest mindset of any place on this planet and in this universe, quite frankly. And it's really sad, and it really upsets me a lot of the time. I don't let it get to me because a lot of it's BS from mainstream media and these talking head politicians that, quite frankly, we need to get send away. We are great. We always have been. We've stumbled quite a few times. We're stumbling again. The reason is not because we're not sure on our feet as Americans. It's because we have people pushing us down. And it sucks. It's sad. And a lot of you out there in our community, whether it be over in Inyo County, whether it be Nye, over in Clark and our surrounding Esmeralda Mineral, all the way up to Washoe, we're survivors. And a lot of us have been here for generations. A lot of us have escaped other communities throughout the United States to get here because we've been told, you Google it or you look at how awesome the weather we have here and the opportunities we have, whether it be real estate, jobs, in the Vegas Valley, opportunities that you never have anywhere else without in America. And I want us to still be great. The old phrase from the last administration, let's make America great again. It's so true, but we were always great. The thing is, we need to maintain a standard where we can go into the future and have a good outlook and be able to positively talk to our kids and our families and go, hey, hey, Grandpa, I know it was awesome back when you when you were young and in your 20s and 30s. America's changed, Grandpa, and what we're going to do is we're going to make sure your life is going to be awesome in your retirement. And you also want to be able to tell the youth of today, your kids and your grandkids, you want to be able to tell them, hey, the future is awesome and it's going to be bright. You want the elderly, you want the next generation also to have an idea of the future is going to be something to look forward to and not something to go, oh, dang, the apocalypse is coming. I don't want to be right by all the things I've said in the past. You know, the last 20, 25, 30 years that I've been doing preparedness, when I've got out of the service, the military, and I've been doing this survival preparedness thing, whether it be on, international TV or on the radio or with my survival classes in my business. I honestly, a lot of the times, I just don't want to be right. Why would I want to be right about a fundamental crash of the American greatness? I don't want to be right about, the old fear of a bunch of foreigners coming in, helicopters flying in and tanks with a big red star on it, ripping down our white picket fences, taking our cats off the couch, tearing down our American flags and going, hey, the American dream you had back in the 50s is gone, buddy, and we're coming to take all of those things that you love because America is not great and we want to turn it into a communist utopia. I thought that was over because I fought for that in the military. The Cold War ended in the early 90s, and man, we were blessed about it. And now we're not going back into, quite honestly, we are in a kind of a pseudo Cold War with Russia, China, and you could say North Korea, but North Korea is a hermit state. But there's other communities out there in other countries that would like to get rid of us. They don't like our fundamental foundations of freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of being able to talk and discuss and say the things we want on the different social media platforms. That's fundamentally an American original. We used to be able to do that. We can't anymore because there's people that they even take down my own producer. My producer right here at the radio show at KPFE, they harass him online. They take some of his stuff down. If you'd have told me that back in 1989, 1990, 92, 91, when it was the great change in America going away from communism, I'd have been like, you're crazy. Our right in the Constitution is freedom of speech. We can say what we want. We can do what we want. We can have the right to bear arms. I don't have to have the right to, have an Apache gunship, sitting out in my driveway. But if I really wanted to, and I really had the funding for it, I don't have to have all the armament on it. But if I'm an American and I did my time, I served my country, you better damn well believe I could have an Apache helicopter gunship sitting in my driveway. I'm American. My neighbor ought to be able to have that freedom too, right? We might not be able to have the freedom to go fly it around and cause havoc, but one of our fundamental freedoms is to have the freedoms to enjoy our lives, but as long as we don't hinder someone else's. That's the key there, right? That's what's in the Constitution. My producer should be able to have whatever he wants within the confines of the law that doesn't disrupt, anyone else and their right to freedoms in America, right? But see, what we have right now is we have a faction of America and the politicians that want to take away from people that have always had those values and rights and then make it where, well, we can have that, but you can't because you think differently from us. Isn't that the founding fundamentals of this country? Freedom for everyone, right? Freedom of speech for everyone. All man is created equal. Man meaning female, men, human race, right? In America, that was what we were supposed to be doing. That's what I was taught when I was in high school. And I was in high school in a conservative community in Napa Valley, California. Pretty conservative, quite honestly. We weren't considered the San Francisco Bay Area. We were considered Napa, California. Napa County was up in the north. We were considered conservative. But my teachers and my educators, God bless them, I had some really fantastic leaders in my education. And I went to a public school, folks. Could you imagine, a public school with educators now, coming out, a history teacher, a civics teacher, biology teacher, whatever, English teacher coming out now and saying, it's your fundamental right as kids and the youth of America in this public school to have the right of freedom of speech? You don't hear that much anymore. Actually, they're telling you that some kids in the class, just like this university professor did, doing some research online today, pulling a kid out of his class and saying, hey, Billy Bob, you, since you're the basic white dude, you have a better position and a better role in society than the people of other ethnicities in this classroom. That university is sociology, of course. Yeah, sociology. Yeah, anyone that's gone to college and understood, or in my era, sociology. If you got a degree in sociology, back, we used to make fun of you. We're like, oh, you're guaranteed to be unemployed, dude. You might as well be like, a basket weaving artist or something, because I guarantee you're not going to be employed. Well, we've got these same faction of educators in university systems that are teaching this garbage that they still think is relevant. We're going backwards, folks. Going backwards instead of evolving and going forward, where we were when I was in school and going to college. We're going backwards. We're devolving versus evolving. It's ridiculous, and it's frightening for a lot of you folks out there, especially the older folks. I know a lot of folks in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. The people in their 80s cracked me up. My buddy Doug, who's kind of like the unofficial mayor of Pahrump, he's a crack up. He just is always happy-go-lucky, but he grew up in a different time, and he's just living and enjoying his life. We're in a strange time, folks, and the thing is, when I'm talking about preparedness and state of mind and mindset, we have to get into a state of mind where we're looking towards the future, not trying to dwell on, Armageddon and the apocalypse and, every civil unrest. Well, that has been happening. It happened during, 2020, COVID era, and the rioting era, as I would call it. It does exist. It is real. But we have to maintain a more positive attitude, not only for our youth, but for our elderly and the folks milling around that are my age, trying to be successful in business and trying to be successful in relationships and trying to be successful mentoring and being leaders within our community and within the families and the people we care about and love. It's very hard because a lot of people have this idea that we can never be the same. Looks like it, right? It looks like, oh, geez, it's over. We're on our way out, and the fall of Rome has already begun. Began last year, or actually began years ago. But I think that, like I've always told you folks, I'm a survivor. You have to have the mindset that we are going to continue on. We're going to be prepared for it, and we're going to position ourselves where we can succeed, change gears, go left instead of right, or right, go left, because we have to be able to maneuver in a new world. That's what we're at. That's what our discussions here are on our station here at The Watchers. We're watching for the future. We're watching for the end of the community and the world that we knew, like the Mayan apocalypse in 2012. It wasn't that it was going to be an apocalypse. It was going to be a drastic change that was going to change society forever. And look what's happened. I think the Mayans were onto something, right? Let's move towards some ridiculous stuff going on around the world that you're going to have to watch out for. And these are things that are going to be adding to the mess, adding to the idea that you need to be structuring your family, structuring your future, because politically, things aren't just a mess here in America. In Haiti, good old Haiti. Remember Haiti? We can never forget Haiti. It is considered one of the most economically depressed, third world. The term third world is being politically, you can't use third world country anymore. It's not nice. It's not what you should. Haiti is a third world country. It's one of the most economically depressed, actually the most economically depressed countries that actually called itself a country on this planet. Well, they assassinated their president. They're already in a mess. They've been in a mess. I don't think they'll ever not be in a mess because it's embedded in the culture there, unfortunately, for it to be a mess. It's a cultural thing. It's not and it's a political thing there. They just can't get it together because the corruption is so deep. It's sad. It's a Caribbean country, and yet other countries within the Caribbean are frankly thriving, doing as best they can during this COVID era, but Haiti still can't get it together because there's so much political turmoil there. And honestly, they've never been able to fix it. I don't know the answer to this, but what I know is the answer to a lot of the beginning of healing of that country and the politics is fundamentally changing the culture and the toxic ideas that are happening in that country. Not everybody in that country is happy about their cultural, corruption going on within their politics and their politicians, but they can't do anything because they're not in the position to be able to do that. They're not powerful enough, the communities. It's very sad. One day, let's hope that Haiti can have some sort of revolutionary thought and become a standalone great country, which they deserve to be, just like every other country in this world that we live in. Cuba, who would have thought, right? Cuba, it's been in turmoil for quite some years. It kind of slowed down there for a while. People were just kind of trudging along. Communist country, obviously. Cuba is a communist, socialist. You don't want to quite use socialist because there's countries that are kind of democratically socialist within Europe, Europe and Scandinavia, like Sweden as such, that their program and kind of their politics succeed in a different way. They're led in a different way, so it's kind of successful in a lot of ways. They're not perfect, but they're successful. Cuba is a communist country, communist state, as you want to say. They are rioting now. They started earlier this week because, quite frankly, they're pissed off. Their dream of socialist and communist utopia hasn't quite worked out for everyone there, and they're pissed. They have every right to be. We have some Fruit Loops in our political environments that just kind of go, oh, well, like Bernie, our buddy Bernie, Uncle Bernie. Bernie doesn't want to talk about how communism doesn't quite work because it never has worked. Historically, if you understand and you're not brainwashed and, you understand that communism has never worked, never will. It's a failed system. Well, it hasn't worked in Cuba, it never will. And I wish people that have some sort of following like Bernie Sanders, at least, there's a lot of wingnuts that follow that guy. We're talking about a guy that didn't have actually a career or job until he got into politics, until he was almost in it. He was in his early 40s until he got employed. Think about that. Is that the type of guy that you want to be your leader or even listen to? Oh, you didn't get a job until you're like 42, dude? Really? And now he's living off of politics. Quite frankly, we know that since he didn't make the elections to run for president, they gave him they got the backroom deals for him. He's very wealthy now. Worked for him. Corruption works for a lot of people. It does. There's something to be said about that. I always told Edward, I'm like, hey, dude, why can't we just be a dirtbag? We could be quite successful at being dirtbags. We'd have a lot of money, be hated by a lot of people. But the thing is, I just can't do that. You can't feel good about being a politician and a dirtbag, taking advantage of people. You can't do that. I can't do that. But there's lots of people in politics that do on a daily basis. That's what they do. They're professional dirtbags. Remember I said the opening statement about politicians? I've never needed a politician to help me with anything. They're politicians. What are they going to do to you? Professional liars. A lot of them are professional actors. Not a very good job. But now we've got, of course, we've had the civil unrest here in America, right here in our own country. It's kind of calmed down. Let's hope it stays that way. But it can happen. It could flare up basically overnight. We're not Haiti. We're not Cuba. But, right around the corner, it could happen. The other thing that's happening in our local region here in the state of Nevada, the battle-born state, as we say, is we're having a resurgence of COVID-19. That's not helping things. We have the Delta variant now. Wonderful. Thank goodness for the vaccine that came out. See, a lot of professionals that are in the medical sciences, that are in virology, as they say, the people in the know that know about viruses and communicable diseases and that type of science, they flat out have said the research is there, the expertise has been there. If you vaccinate during an outbreak, all you're helping along is you're helping the virus along by deciding to make it, guess what, folks? You're making it mutate. Mutate's a fancy, scary word for change. You're forcing it to change and to get better at what it does, which is better at infecting people, better at jumping from species to species. So we're trying to vaccinate, inoculate against COVID-19, but what we're actually doing is scientifically, we're actually making it go, oh, hey, guys, all you Delta buddies out there that are in my COVID strain, these clowns are going, hey, we're going to inoculate these buddies. They think we're just gonna stay along and go, this inoculation. Oh no, you're killing me. Stop. No, we're just gonna get stronger and better. We're just gonna hop the fence and get better and stronger and change over. That's what viruses do. That's why they're so insidious. That's why they're good at what they do. That's why no one has ever been able to stop them. Viruses do what they do because they're experts at it. You know, it's like what I say about politicians. Most politicians are idiots. Well, how hard is it to beat an idiot? It's pretty hard. You say, well, they're idiots. It's really hard as an intelligent person to beat an idiot. Do you know why? Because they're experts at being idiots. We're not experts at being stupid. Politicians are generally really good at it. So how are we going to beat stupid? It's hard because we're not experts at being stupid. They are. So when you have stupid in charge, really hard to try to beat stupid because they are the experts at it. So COVID variant is going rampant in Nevada. They've begun the uptick, and that sucks. Who knows where that's going to lead to? And we're just going to have to sit by and see, just like with everything else, what's going to happen. The COVID variants are running rampant in Australia. Africa, we have shutdowns. They've shut down those countries. South Africa's in another whole mess. And Southeast Asia, they're shutting down. Like Vietnam, for example, those countries usually have had a good angle on beating it or kind of mitigating it. They didn't beat it totally, but they mitigated it. But now, you know, Southeast Asia, like Thailand, Vietnam, it's resurging the worst it's been. So they're shutting down those countries. You can't go in and can't go out. That's not good news, folks. Not at all. And they want to keep inoculating and trying more things with these COVID vaccines. We only have the 3 COVID vaccines. Those are already outdated, folks. The other thing is they're already causing damage to certain people in our communities. There's people dying from taking those COVID shots that are supposed to be preventing the virus. There's people that have taken the COVID vaccines and are getting COVID anyway. And where's the answers to all this? Well, the answer is there are no answers. The only thing is we have to be better at this. We have to think better. We can't be just running around outside like the sky is falling. Let's inoculate. Let's find another virus. Let's figure this out. Let's start giving people shots. Can't do that. Not during the minute. I'm no expert, but I'll tell you what. A lot of the experts are saying, and common sense tells me from the past. Remember, I talk about always study the past so you never relive the future. You don't relive the past that was the wrongs in the future. Got to be smarter than that. Well, we're falling back into the old, dummy line again. We got to be better at this. So we have this issue, and I want to go into a little preparedness section here on our hour. What can we do, and what should we be doing to prepare for this really ridiculous, blazing hot summer that we're obviously going to be having to deal with all the way in probably until September, October, probably late September, probably all the way in the middle of October. It's going to be hot. Well, there's a lot of people that are starting to travel because instead of being cooped up in their homes because of the COVID-19 and just being without employment, school's out, people want to travel and get out there. I understand you want to get out into the wilderness and you want to enjoy your life for once, despite what the government has told you, crawl under a rock, cover yourself in a tarp, and go get the COVID vaccine and just hide out at home and social distance, right? That didn't work. All it did was cause a bunch of mental torment and destroyed a whole graduating class of our youth and turned them into a bunch of sad kids. Sucks. We want to change that. So we want kids, and we want the adults, we want everyone to get out and enjoy the time we have for the summer. Unfortunate thing in our region, it's like, it's like a heyday, Satan's holiday within the Mojave Desert where we're at. It's hot, and it's tiring. It's ridiculous. So what can we do? You're like, Mitch, what can we do? Well, you have to prepare. And it sucks right now because if you go to Home Depot, you go to Lowe's, you go online, just talking about with my producer here at the station, a lot of things aren't in the supply chain to provide air conditioning, and all the air conditioning contractors are stretched thin. And the costs to upgrade or get your systems working where you can live a normal life where it's not 120 degrees inside your house, it's made it more expensive. My producer just quoted me today. He's like, he's just trying to get our new studio set up for our radio show in a kind of a man cave area we've been trying to get together for quite some time. Like 10 grand, 9 grand, 11 grand, 11,000, $10,000 to get, just a couple air conditioning units fired up in the studio. That's insane. The cost keeps on going up every month because of labor, because of cost of materials, and because the stuff is just not available. What? It's insane. But you have to prepare for this, folks. You guys have to have backups. When I'm saying backups, you're going to have to shift your funds to certain things that meet the priority standards better suited to the new world we live in. Meaning you might have to go without certain things to make sure you're in a safer environment. For your elderly, your kids, your youngsters, you're going to have to switch your lifestyle. And that's hard for people to switch your lifestyles, especially if you've been living a standard of life that's completely different from what we have had pre-COVID, before this COVID, this China virus nightmare that we've been dealing with. That means safety within this summer. There's a lot of people on the road now, and they're traveling, going on vacation to certain places. We have, of course, people coming in from Europe, not as much as we used to, France and Germany. We usually have a traditional tourism time here in the Pahrump Valley and in the Mojave and Death Valley region, where tourists come in from Europe to come see the valley because it's their vacation time. It's a bad time to come, but they do anyway. And there's already been issues where people are getting heat stroke, heat stress, because they're not taking the precautions that you should be taking when you live in a region or you're visiting a region like this. So I'm going to revisit some of those things in our last 20 minutes of our show here at The Watchers. Number one thing is, if you don't have to be in the heat, stay out of it. Meaning, if you could stay in an air-conditioned, cooler environment, don't take that car trip, to go get your McDonald's. Don't take that car trip if you don't have to, extended car trip to Vegas, to go gambling or go see Billy Bob, your buddy. Don't do that, because you're putting yourself at risk. Because I've seen a lot of cars broken down on the highways recently because the heat, they just weren't designed to deal with heat. Just not designed for it. I took the thermometer out this week. The thermometer goes up to 125. Took it outside. Within 2 minutes, it had been pinned at 125 and was beyond 125. It couldn't go any higher. And it wasn't even in the sun. You put it in the sun, set it in the sun, it was pegged, of course. The dang thing was getting so hot, if I would have left it there, it would have melted. It would have started warping the plastic. That's hot, folks. You don't really want to be out in that. The thing is, there's a lot of us actually that have to be. We have to continue our lives because we have construction workers, we have contractors, the very people that are trying to fix your AC units, if they're available, which they're all booked up from what my producer's saying, they have to be outside. There's people that are doing landscaping, they're building homes, they're doing work, they're working on cars, they're out doing their daily routine, and they can't stop that because that's how they make their livelihood, right? Then we go back to the basics. Remember Mitch basics? I always tell you the survival basics. If you're out in this heat, you need 1 gallon of water, minimum. 1 gallon per day per person. So if you have 5 people with you and you're all working a construction site, you're all out, in the desert looking for fossils or rock hounding, or you're out doing something, you're on a hike, you need 1 gallon per each person that you have with you in your group. And quite frankly, I'm going to tell you right now, 1 gallon of water is not enough. Not when it's 130, not when it's 117, because you folks forget when the Weather Channel or these channels that are sitting there telling you, they're showing you on your phone, oh, it's 117 on your phone. Yeah, it's 117 at that weather station that they're taking that digital, the internet Wi-Fi is sending them that signal. Well, the device is telling you it's 117 at that location. That's the air temperature. If they were to take that air temperature, generally, I think the rule is about 3 feet above the ground where they're at these meteorological stations. If you took that air sensor temperature and put it on the ground right next to it, you're at 170, 200. Think about that, folks. The ground is hot enough where if you had bare feet, you'd burn them. You couldn't do it. You couldn't even put your hand on those because you'd burn your hand. I've done it. So you guys know, guys, I have a cuisine background. A lot of you folks, I have a chef background. I love food, love cuisine, love food. General, professional eater. That's my other gig, right? So you folks know the standard temperature to make sure that your hamburgers or let's say your pork roast is safe for eating. That means it's gotten hot enough on the internal temperature. You stick your food thermometer inside your hamburger to see if it's reached temperature that kills all viruses, all bacteria, all parasites, if you want to say that. The internal temperature to make sure your food, your meat is safe for eating is 160 degrees. So you're like, Mitch, what? You mean to tell me that my burger, if I take the temperature in the middle of that burger, it's safe to eat even if I had like a tapeworm in there or like bacteria or viruses? If it reaches 160, that's the food standards where all that's got killed, right? Yes, I'm telling you that is 160 degrees. If you take your thermometer and put it on the ground, mostly, and I've done this, it's over 170 degrees on the ground, on just the sand. Generally, it's over 200 in some places. You take it to the black asphalt of, like, let's say the Walmart parking lot, it's over 200 degrees on that asphalt. That's insane. It's hot enough to sizzle your bacon, fry an egg, and cook on the ground, folks. That's hot. So when you hear this temperature, the air temperature is 117. It's actually not 117. It's actually much hotter than that because the ground, your car, wherever you're at is actually way hotter than that. It's hot enough to cook steak. Does that get it through to you folks, how dangerous that is? That's hot. It's deadly hot. It kills people in the Las Vegas, Pahrump Valley, Inyo County every year. That's what I'm imploring you to do, folks, is be safe. Generally, you can't be drinking just water. Remember I said a gallon of water per person per day? It's not enough. You need water to cool yourself down. You need to pour it on your head. It's not enough. A gallon's not enough. You need to have a supplement for your water, meaning a sports drink. Sports drink. What do you mean, Ed? What do you mean, Ed and Mitch? Well, the thing is, you need a sports drink that has salts, electrolytes, vitamin C, salt, sodium, some other good flavoring so you're not banging your head against the wall. Some people can't drink water. I like cold water, but I like to be flavored too. I don't just like to just guzzle and just think about warm water. There's folks that are, oh, Mitch, I've got a gallon of water in my trunk for safety. Dude, you can't have it in your trunk for safety. If you need it, you pull it out of your trunk. Either the bottle has melted, which happens all the time, especially the milk jug cartons, they'll explode. You won't have any water. You have a moldy trunk. Or the water is going to be literally over 100 degrees plus. You can't drink that. You're going to burn your mouth. It's like drinking hot coffee. You have to make sure if you go on a long-term trip in your vehicle, you have a cooler chest that's rated for this weather, a good one. You have to have it packed full of ice, and your drink should be in there. That way you could cool yourself off in an emergency or cool someone else down. You dump nice cold water on them. That's the start of a recovery process for someone that's in the middle of heat stress or heat stroke or getting to that point. You have to cool them down rapidly. You can't cool them down with a jug of water that's 150, 160 degrees that's in your trunk of your car. You can't do that. You're going to hurt someone. You're going to kill them. You got to think smart, folks. The other thing is you have to make sure your car is in good order. You have to carry water just to make sure your radiator's topped up. If you have a leak, you got to carry a system. You got to carry spare hose clamps, some spare hoses. You just got to make it happen. You got to have duct tape. You got to make it happen so in case you are in someplace out in the middle of nowhere, trying to get to Vegas, trying to get to, Shoshone, trying to get to Baker because you're going to LA, you need to have something that can get you there before AAA comes. Because AAA, when it's hot, the tow truck service, they can't get to you right away. There's people that have died waiting to get the tow truck there. Sad. It's astonishing. It doesn't need to happen. What I carry in my vehicles are big tarp, paracord. You need that. Why? Because you can set up a shade structure with your vehicle. You need to be under the shade versus be inside the vehicle. When you're out of gas, your car breaks down, it won't start. You can't be sitting inside that vehicle because it turns into an oven. It's better to rig a tarp with a couple cheap tent stakes from your hardware store and some paracord, which is just basic string or rope. Get your tarp tied to your door of your car, get on a blanket and sit underneath the tarp where the breeze is coming by while you're waiting for the tow truck to come or medical services, or you're waiting for your family to come if you have cell phone service, which we don't in this valley around the areas surrounding us. We don't have cell phone service. So what are you going to do then? You need to have a way to get out of your car. I just purchased a bunch of big golf umbrellas. That's a trick that I've been doing for years. A big golf umbrella can shade you from not only the rain, but from the sun, folks. It's a portable shade area. If you're stuck in the middle of, going towards Baker, where there's no cell phone service, or you're going towards Death Valley, or you're going to Reno or whatever, even if you're going to Vegas, if you get out of your car, sit under an umbrella because there's no shade trees there, you know how much better you are? Have your emergency water there with you or a cold drink from your cooler chest. It's almost you could like to start playing cards with the kids or something. It's a lot better than if you're baking in the sun, sitting in a metal box, which is a car, and dying of heat stroke because you're waiting for the tow truck to come. We don't want that, folks. Something as simple as an umbrella or a tarp, a cooler chest with some ice in it and some cold drinks will actually save your life. I'm not trying to be overdramatic. I'm not trying to be dramatic. This valley has literally thousands of deaths attributed to and missing persons attributed to not serial killers, not UFOs and aliens or little green men. Well, we have those out here too. Not making fun. That's here, folks. Is that people are dying from heat stroke because they just didn't make it into the shade. Their car broke down. They went on a hike. You don't want that. I remember how my philosophy is when I teach my survival course, and I've taught you on this very broadcast and after the crash and on the Watchers and the Lion's Den, is that you're going to be gone. You're going to pass away, and you're going to be, God's going to say, hey, buddy, that sucked. You should have been doing better. You shouldn't have done that. But hey, welcome home. The thing is, you're going to be gone. You're going to be passed away. You're going to be on to your next universe. The people that are still here, like your family, your wife, your husband, your children, your grandchildren, your aunties, your uncles, they're still here on earth. They have to live now a life without you. That's the tragedy. The waste of life that didn't have to happen because you just didn't prepare for a normal day and you broke down and prump and then you passed away and now your family has to live with the turmoil and loss and heartbreak because you're now gone. I know you don't want that, folks. No one wants that. You want to make sure you prepare because it's not just you, remember. You are a part of a family. You're a part of a community. You're a part of this world. And if you pass away, you're leaving behind a bunch of sad, devastated people. And you do not want that, right? You want to prepare for the worst and hope for the best, right? It's better to be prepared than be not prepared and die tragically for no apparent reason. I just really sick of seeing that. And it's sad. I see it every year, and I talk about this every year. Happens every year in the Las Vegas Valley, Inyo County, Nye County, Mojave, the Owens Valley, our surrounding areas, because people just made a mistake and forgot and didn't prepare. We don't need any more of that, especially during this COVID-19 time, just especially during all the turmoil we got going on in life anyway. We're all trying to live our lives, right? We don't need our families going, oh boy, that was, wow. Now we lost a family member that really was a breadwinner for us. They're the ones that made the income. We don't need that. So be smart. Be smart, folks. It's very simple. Preparedness is simple in a lot of ways, and you don't need a whole lot of money to do it. That's been an excuse I've heard many times. Mitch, I don't have the money. Oh, really, dude? Didn't I just see you at Starbucks like every day for a week? Do you know how much your Frappuccino costs? Especially your grande one? Dude, yours ones with extra cream and caramel on top, that's like $8, dude. But you couldn't take $8 and get a Tupperware tub, a Rubbermaid tub, put some good bottles of water back in your car, put a tarp, put some jumper cables, put some screwdrivers, road flare, You couldn't do that? But over a week's time, you spent, good $50 on drinks? Come on. A lot of people make excuses. Don't make excuses about your lives, because it's not fair to your family. It's not fair to your loved ones. Honestly, it's not being fair to yourself, because heat sucks, man. And from what I heard, dying ain't easy. It can suck, and it can hurt and be painful. We don't need that. Prolong your life. Remember, my whole job, my whole career, I've based off of survival, mitigating disaster, making it through, being safe, making it the next day, another day, and thriving. Not just surviving, but thriving. Right, folks? That's what we want to do. We're getting close to the end of the hour. We're at 6:55. We'll change a little bit of gears. So we have a lot of, because of our geographic area that we live in, and we don't have a whole lot of options. Mr. Producer is giving me the finger. We're getting ready to leave. Make sure, if you can't get it here where you're at, the grocery store's here, make a plan, get your family together, get all the people together that have the good vehicle, the good transportation, drive outside, go to Vegas and get the things you need. Because a lot of times what I've been seeing is we just don't have it here because it's all sold out at all the grocery stores, hardware stores and such. Make a trip into the Vegas Valley. You may not like Vegas, but make it there. Get your stuff done there. Make it one good trip. Come back and be prepared, folks. Because you want to be prepped. You don't want to be behind the 8 ball. You don't want to suffer this summer season, because it's a brutal one. You want to be safe because your loved ones matter. All lives matter. Everyone matters. That's what is important now. Help your neighbors. Help your loved ones. Help each other. Because a lot of the times, prayers work. God works his wonders. But it helps a lot better if you're sitting there praying to God and you got a nice cold drink sitting next to you when your tire's flat out in the desert. Until then, this is Mitchell Langen. We'll be back next week on Tuesday. This is The Watchers. Thank you for watching.